I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, and I'm here with Grammy-nominated five-time ACM winner Lee Brice and two-time ACM winner Dallas Davidson, who penned the title track for the Neon Highway. Gentlemen, I think this song is so awesome because of the way that it connects to the story of this film. And so I want to talk about some of the lyrics. And the one lyric that always sticks with me, of course, is the refrain, living the dream on the neon highway, and the only way to do it is to do it my way. That's so pivotal to the theme and tone of the film, isn't it? And did it take you long to get to that really interesting lyric?
Lee, I would take that real quick because I think you and I we can finish each other's sentences on that one. You know, we are living the dream, being able for me to write songs for a living, and Lee being a great songwriter in his own right, but to perform and doing it our way. We did do it our way. Lee and I go back 20 years. So to say living the dream and doing it our way is an understatement. That's exactly what we did. So when I sat down and wrote the song, that line just kind of flew out because when we write songs, we really get in touch with who we are, and it comes out as a songwriter naturally. And that one just kind of flew out.
Yeah, doing it our way is kind of I think the reason why there's been a little longevity in our careers. I didn't write the song, but a lot of times it's harder to kind of stay down at what you're going to do, because it's easy to kind of say, hey, I'm going to go chase something that's already happening or whatever, and do what's already going on or whatever's hip. And so, Dallas was spot on when he wrote down, and whenever he just thought about that, because that just came out of his mouth naturally, because he's always done it his way. And like, look, Dal is not shy to tell you, no, this is what I'm feeling. I want to be honest. And so he's gonna be honest with you at all times.
Yeah, and to add, Rob, to what Lee just said, we did it our way, and we found that when we wrote songs early on and people started latching or being drawn to what we were saying, and we were having success with that, it makes you continue to believe in yourself, and that confidence is built at an early age for me in my 20s, and same with Lee.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that actually you said that, because it occurred to me that over the years, you've both been responsible for some amazing hits, and you're both so well known, particularly in Nashville and that whole industry, that whole world. How does it feel when you're putting out your creative output, stuff that comes from your heart, and people are really responding to it like that, and now responding to a song like this that really caps a really aspirational story about these two men in this movie? What do you think, Dallas?
I mean, when you speak the truth, and it's like performing a song. Say I write a song, right? It's a hit, big hit, and I go to the show, I go to the concert, and instead of standing on side stage or backstage, like Lee, somebody like Lee would certainly give me a nice laminate, and I go to the crowd and I watch how they respond, and the best feeling in the world is to hear someone sing the words to your song back. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but it made me think of that when you were asking the question. Is when you write a song and you connect, you use that word. It's the best feeling in the world, and to be able to do that, and when in this film, it was different. I've never done this before. I can honestly say I'm a rookie, reading that script over and over just to make sure that I did not mess this up. It was a challenge. It was different. It was hard, and I really studied what the producers were, and the directors and the writers. In fact, being a writer, I wanted to write that song that fit the script, and that was my goal, and I hope it connected. I think we're finding out.
Mm-hmm. Lee, how about you? When you're on stage and you see the crowd react to something that you've created and something that you're giving to them, it's a similar thing to what happens in a film. You make a film, and you make the songs or the score. You want it to really resonate, and when it does, what does that actually feel like? A lot of us don't really know what that feels like.
Well, it's it's the best feeling, because the truth is when you're gonna even, writing a song sometimes can be, especially for Dallas, it can be a 20-minute thing because it might slip out of his mouth. But all of the years that he's put into learning how to craft a song like that, is a lot of work. And so, and or say producing a record, or me spending my whole life doing this, when you get up there and you spend so much time like a movie, right? And there's so many moving parts and so much work that goes into it, and heart and soul, but you still try to like do it your way, right? You still try to walk the line of what you do, and not just, it's so gratifying because it could easily go the other way, and it's like you're kind of just putting your heart out on your sleeve. And so when you get up there and they really come back to you, for me as a performer on stage all the time, that's what I live for, is not the applause, but the connection. Like when they applaud, or they stand up, or they're crying, or they're laughing out loud, belly laughing, are they listening like a pin drop in a 10,000 person arena? That's the connection that I always dreamed about having. And then I've been able to experience a lot, and there's nothing like it because we've worked so long for it, Uh, so yeah, it's a really gratifying and humbling, and going, Dallas talked the other day about looking up and seeing like the awards and stuff he's had on the wall, and it just hit him, like, gosh, God's been good to me. Like there's a true gratification in putting your whole life on the line for something. And so that moment when those people sing back to you like that, it really is, what we do this for.
Yeah, it's really breathtaking. I love being in an arena and experiencing that with all of my fellow fans. The reason why I bring it up is because one of the central themes of the film is this highway of broken dreams that many, many artists and all kinds of professionals travel along before they get to where they want to be. And for you guys creatively, you're there. I mean, you have you can even get even bigger, but you have achieved such great success, but you've been on that highway. And I just wonder, did that theme from the film resonate with you both personally when you came together to create this song? I'll go with you first, Alice.
Well, absolutely, it resonated with me. The first read, I went, oh wow, I'm that guy, except I made it, and I didn't have to go home and come back. Did I get here and I left my family, I left my friends, I left my loved ones, I left everything I knew to be normal, to move to Nashville, Tennessee, and you're putting yourself out there, and then for it to work, when you're kind of writing a song as the character, you're putting yourself in their shoes. I was able to extremely relate to that character when he made it, and I know what that feels like. I also have seen many people struggle and have to move home, and so that resonated with me in a big way. I sympathize with people that weren't as blessed as I was, or Lee was, to be able to be successful, and I mean we got to do what we dreamed about doing, and we're still doing it right now. We're talking about it, in fact. And what Lee mentioned earlier about that kind of aha moment I had at the studio when I walked in. I had stepped away from really music in general for a little while, and I walked back in my studio, and it was down the hallway, and I have these awards on the wall. And the reason that Lee knows this story is another song that we have together, and it's called Cry, and we were talking about men crying, and I was like, man, I fucking freaking boohooed the other day because I saw how, what has actually happened to me. It was not a pinch yourself moment. It was like a tears rolling down my face moment. I can't believe this happened. So yeah, to answer your question, it's like, what just happened? This is I am that guy. I just did it a little different, and I had more opportunity, and it happened faster for me.
Lee?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I found myself, I'm not a experienced actor. I've been in a couple of little tiny little moments and a couple of 2 or 3 movies. This was the biggest for me. I had for me, and it's still a small role, but 3 or 4 scenes, we were there for a few days, it was I'm going, but I've not done this a lot, but because of the role that I played, and Wayne, and even Bo, whenever he was playing, it's like I could see myself kind of like what Dallas reading when he said, we've been on both sides and the middle of all of those things. And so I was in there for myself, kind of like, okay, I actually don't have to act a whole lot. I can just sort of be who I am, because at the moment I was sort of that guy, a little bit, and I could totally relate to the guys around me, even legitimately when we're in the studio and I'm kind of getting pushed in the corner, but also trying to get pulled out. We've been around these situations. And so lucky for me, I wasn't trying to like act a whole lot. I was just trying to make sure I got my lines right. But like, it wasn't hard to understand what was going on in the moment, and to and connect with really kind of everybody in the room, even the bass player is a guy who's actually a real musician back in Nashville and stuff. And so it was really fun to be able to be there with that kind of real moment, even in that scene.
By the way, I thought you and Pam Tillis, fantastic. Very, very good performances. You know what, guys, thank you so much for your insight. We're going to bring you back for our group panel, but it was really fascinating to understand that this film resonated with your stories and you were able to create a song like this that really resonates for the whole film. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Alex Summers and Scott Alario. Guys, the score for the Nickel Boys has a uniquely experimental sound, blending acoustic elements, unconventional tape loops, raw samples. How did you both decide on this collage style approach, and what impact do you think it has on the audience's experience?
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the score, and thanks for chatting with us today. We didn't really decide on anything. It's just kind of how we move through the world, and we love listening. We love collecting sounds. We love collaging stuff. We love using samplers and the acoustic instrument palette. I think Scott and I relate to electronic musicians a lot more than acoustic, but we don't use synthesizers or electronics really. We just use acoustic instruments, but we treat them very much like the way electronic musicians like treat their sounds and mangle things. So I think it's just how we like to build music, is treating it like clay and just recording stuff and playing around, and the sound of the music is as important as the notes. So Ramel, the director of this movie, kind of let us do that, and I think he was curious to see where we would land, and there was a bit of back and forth, but yeah, we just leaned into the kind of patient, durational, very beautiful camera work of this movie and paired it with music that was slow and textural, and we thought it was a natural way to approach it, really, for us.
Scott, anything to add?
Yeah. And the second part of your question was it about how the audience might have be affected, or? I think it's like, I'm never really sure how an audience will interpret a work, or how they'll be affected by it. But I think for Alex and I, we're affected by our own music, kind of like we get really into it when we're making music together and we're kind of lost in it. And I think we're transported to another place, or we're very, kind of just immersed in it. So it's a little bit hard for me to say, but I think that it's a cool pairing. I think it's like very different in a way. I think Ramel Ross, the director, had done a documentary film before this, and he used some of our music as well for that. And I think when we saw the combination of our kind of small textural pieces, sound collage pieces, with his visuals that are, what one might imagine as being quite opposite, where it just was a cool pair.
I want to pick up on that because I know a lot of your work, both of your work, from, working with John C. and Sigur Rós, and of course as the Parachutes. So I'm very familiar with that avant-garde style of music, your musicianship. But a lot of your music was really internalized, and I used to always really take it in, and it was a very internal approach, maybe with headphones. And I feel like this film suits your style so perfectly, given that the point of view is the audience through the eyes of these two young men. I just wonder if that was something that was really playing on your mind when you came together to create this score, that it was going to be a very internalized emotional experience.
Yeah, well, thanks again for saying that, and thanks for listening over the years. I think we didn't really, when we read the script, it talks about this point of view thing. And Scott and I were lucky enough to visit the set in New Orleans where they were filming and kind of get a little taste for it. But we didn't exactly realize what that would look like until we saw the film, because it's hard to read it on the page and understand because there's so many different ways Ramel and the team could have done point of view. But once we saw it, I think it encouraged us to lean into the kind of slow durational music. It didn't need to say a lot in a short period of time. We felt that it could kind of unfold more slowly and yeah, just be a little more ambient and dreamy, based on the kind of experiential nature of the way the film is shot. And it's kind of a little more like you're living in it. And when you move through your own life and you hear the world, things don't necessarily have to make sense in a literal way. And that felt cool to us that we could lean into that. Yeah, Scott, I feel like you've spoken about this. You have a good understanding of the POV translated to music.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was like Alex said, like once we saw it, it made sense. But I think one really cool thing about working with Ramel is that he really wanted us to do our own thing and kind of just like dig into it really deeply, like what we do together. And he kind of gave us a lot of space for that. And then we would make a lot of music not to picture and send it to him. And he would come back maybe with an edit or some ideas, and we'd go back and forth. And eventually we did work more to picture. But I think at first we were just kind of like so kind of doing our own thing, like making a record if we were just going to be putting out music together or something like that. It felt kind of more like that at first. And then of course it became more like film scoring once we saw more. But at first I don't think we were really thinking of the first person perspective at all. At least I wasn't, but I was so pleased to see the film. We got to see it in a room that had amazing sound in New York, and it was so cool to like hear it and feel, and you do feel like you're inside of the head in a way.
Absolutely. I think it's really important for people to see this film in a cinema, because the sound is so critical to really immersing yourself in what these young men were experiencing. And I think your score actually really hit me the most when Elwood is arriving at Nickel Academy. It's this horrifying horror, like it was this emblematic of the dread and isolation and helplessness that they were feeling. And I'm just wondering, what instrumentation, Alex, did you rely on or deploy to really make the audience feel so helpless and alone, just like he would have been feeling?
Yeah, that cue in particular is probably the most visceral kind of dread-filled cue in the film. And it started very simply of just a two-note theme on a Wurlitzer, and then it got really crazy based on a few field recordings that Scott made of, I'll let Scott take over, but I'll just tell you the raw field recordings was like a tap dancer, just totally fucked and slowed down and destroyed in post-processing, and some brass instruments that were also kind of treated to hell. But yeah, Scott, you should share more about the audio collage on those field recordings that you did.
Yeah. So yeah, Alex had this really cool, very kind of like haunting tone on the Wurlitzer that I had a sample of that, or I had that in my library or something, and I was listening to it and then just kind of playing around really and maybe responding to the feeling. It's like through a space echo, so it's very the tone of the Wurlitzer is kind of like stretched out and just, yeah, it gave me this really strange off feeling. And then, yeah, like he said, I put in some tap dancing and some brass and just played around with it. And I think at first that was kind of an earlier piece that we worked on. And I think before we had maybe read the screenplay, or it was like around that time, but I think like I was we weren't really sure what Ramel would want in a way, and I was still thinking maybe he would want us to make like a horror film score, or maybe there would be like really dark aspects from our music. And it was just trying out something really different for us because we don't really make stuff that sounds that way, or we hadn't. And even though there is like heaviness and somberness and darkness to a lot of the pieces we made, I think like this one is a bit more chaotic and frenetic and psychotic. And yeah, I was so excited when I was placed to that scene. And we were like, I had to kind of bite my tongue or something and not be like, please, like, let that make the final cut or something. Because like when I saw it, I was just so excited, the arrival at Nickel. And it sounds silly to say something excited about something because it is a terrible moment in the film and it is like horrifying sounds and it's awful and like you feel kind of sick to your stomach, but excited because yeah, that weird piece of music we made together was going to be
it captures like dread and being really upset in a really sincere way. It's not cheapo. It doesn't kind of score the drama of it. It's really internal and like upsetting, almost like panic attacky. But yeah, it's cool. It's a cool moment. Yeah, thanks for calling that one out.
Yeah, it's a lot of the score is not I don't know how else to put it, but it's not self-conscious. It felt very organic to me. Like another example, I don't want to spoil it, but towards the end, there's a more triumphant, cautiously triumphant track when the two guys are cycling. Again, you don't create motifs or cues for certain characters or certain moments, but it just felt very true. So final question, we really don't have much time, but the final question is when you have to mix it up with that kind of tone without foreshadowing, is that a really hard thing to get right?
Yeah, it is. It's hard. And I think if we would have scored this film the way I've scored any other film or the way any other director would have asked their composer to work, it would have had that foreshadowing. It would have had those themes. It would have had all these hallmarks of a great film score. But every time Scott and I started to lean in that direction, Ramel would just gently let those cues fall away or those ideas. He wasn't mean about it, but it wasn't the movie he was making. So we had to find a way to achieve what we wanted to, but in the most unprescriptive way possible. And it just required us to keep experimenting, keep trying things, and make music that felt true to us, authentic, and that would somehow match the on-screen experience, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Final word to you, Scott.
No, I was just would agree with that fully. Yeah, it was tricky and yeah, what Alex said for sure.
Thank you guys for your time today. We'll bring you back shortly for the group panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Toto Miranda, Yvonne Lambert, and Josh Lambert, otherwise known as the Octopus Project. Sasquatch Sunset is audacious, provocative, moving, and actually really funny. So I wanted to know straight up, how do you, the three of you, approach the music? Do you lean into the film's more absurdist elements, or do you focus on the wild, natural setting of the film, or do you just do both? Who would like to go first?
First of all, thank you so much for having us here. It's really, really awesome to be here. I think,
yeah, I would say both.
Yeah, and I think the Zellner brothers, the filmmakers' approach kind of went from one to the other. They had initially started, they went into it wanting to do kind of a more documentary style approach to the whole thing and have it be a little bit more removed. But then I think as they got into it, they found it themselves being drawn into the characters and the setting and wanting it to feel weightier and more epic. So we started with some kind of lighter themes, and then as it went on, it got pulled into a heavier and heavier place and kind of a more epic place. So it was kind of a journey through both, and all the tones ended up in the film somehow.
You know, I was thinking about the best way to ask this question without spoiling too much of the film, but there's so many ambient electronic sounds, just from my layperson's perspective, organic sampling, unusual instrumentation that I was always trying to listen into and figure out what it was, sometimes when I wasn't in the moment. And I just wondered, like, if you could talk us through perhaps what was the strangest or most unusual, unexpected instrumentation that you were able to deploy in this score.
I mean, a lot of it was we took like field recordings or would sample ourselves like playing a saxophone or a drum or something, and then would like way pitch it down, slow it down. A lot of it was, yeah, I mean, field recording stuff as well.
There was one piece we sent in with initial sketches that was just the sound of these ceramic mugs knocking into each other, but slowed down several octaves. And they really responded to that and felt like that really said something about the world they were making. And so from that point, we started slowing everything down and doing lots of very stretched out, pitched down versions of things we'd recorded.
Which really worked because it was about Sasquatches, which, you know, we were kind of thinking, what would Sasquatch music be like? As ridiculous as that sounds coming out of my mouth, like it feels like it would be slower and kind of human, but not really exactly, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping you would say, because it was kind of like recognizable, but weird, but also heartfelt. And that is a really challenging thing to get right. You could have really stuffed this up. And I love it how the music, for me, really brings this together. It's a crazy bonkers film, of course, but it's actually really, really moving, and it's really beautiful. And it's about Sasquatches, and that's crazy. So you've worked with the Zellner brothers before. They are wildly creative, obviously. Does that familiarity and your creative alignment over the years impact your willingness to try new things, take risks, and be as weird and as eccentric as possible?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think just because we've been best friends for like 20 plus years. And we know each other so well and each other's tastes. And I think we don't even have to talk about it. We just know like what each other wants. And that gives us so much freedom to just like throw anything we can at them and see what they think. And yeah, it's just like such a beautiful, wonderful collaborative process with those guys.
Yeah, and we feel really comfortable taking risks with them, and they're always game for kind of the weirder the better.
Yeah. And it gets very, very collaborative. We always say when we are working on a movie that it's like we have two more members in the band, because we work a lot passing ideas between each other, and then when we're working on a film, we just include them in the circle and pass things to them, and they'll do edits or kind of remixes or paste things together in new ways that are surprising to us that we can then incorporate into the cues as they move forward.
Yeah, that must be terribly exciting to just be kind of freed up to just go, let's go crazy here and see what happens. And then you land on something like this that really works. Obviously, it's resonating. The film did so well at film festivals, at Sundance. So I mean, you did something good here, but as I said earlier, you take risks and you just don't know. Let's talk about one particular track. I always sometimes with scores like to focus in on a track, and I love New Horizon because as a film score nerd, I love so many genres, but I love it when some genres are blended or some styles, and you've got ethereal synth ambient sound with melodic acoustic reverie throughout the score, and this track in particular. So talk me through being ambitious by blending orchestral or acoustic with some things that are more synth based and ethereal. That is a really challenging thing to get right, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, we're always kind of going for like the textural stuff is sort of first. It's like how to like the sound of it as well as like just also kind of the most important thing. And however we get there, I think is cool with us. I don't know if I personally thought about like the blending of those two of being.
Yeah, I think maybe part of that blend comes from the Zellners pointing to and us naturally loving a lot of the Popol Vuh music from Herzog films. And they kind of do a back and forth sometimes between the synthier psych stuff and the more guitar-y quasi-folk thing. So I think we were taking a little bit of inspiration from that combination. Although there isn't really that much synth proper in the film, it's a lot of like woodwinds and brass kind of slowed down and treated, which I think helps give it the organic thing and definitely gets it to that ethereal kind of mysterious place, but with a little bit more grit to it.
That's really interesting because I perceived it as more of a synth element, but now that you're explaining how you've slowed down certain organic sounds that you were able to capture, that actually makes so much more sense for the film. And yet, to my ears, I was just so immersed in it, firstly in the story, but also in the emotion that I just assumed that you were fusing those elements. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, there is a little bit in there, but I think on that cue in particular, it's slowed down flutes, slowed down recorders at the beginning.
Yeah.
And also like sampling our voices and stuff.
Oh yeah, nice. Can we talk about deploying the amazing Riley Keough, who will, I actually know her through other people, so I know that she's a really cool person. She's really good to work with. But we have to remember she's Elvis Presley's granddaughter as well, and she's a grunting Sasquatch on this score, and I think she's probably super proud of that as part of her credits, to be honest. When you recorded her vocals, was it just another day in the studio? Was it a fun, ridiculous, memorable day, as I imagine it might have been? That isn't even the most outrageous thing in the score, but I think it's something that a lot of people like to talk about. So who would like to talk us through that?
Yeah, we actually were not in the studio when she recorded. She recorded in LA, and we live in Austin. But David Zellner, the director, one of the directors of the film, he was there and recording it and giving us a play-by-play. And during the day, I think we were all just like so nervous to hear it and so excited, just over the moon because her voice is just phenomenal. And he sent it at the end of the day, sent us the recording, and also they did some ADR grunt pickup work during the recording session, and so he just sent us the file of everything. And when we got it, the ADR, the grunts were in there, and then we thought it would be extremely hilarious to edit a version of the song that's just her grunting. And so we did that just as a joke and sent it to David Zellner, and he loved it. And then he immediately sent it to Riley, and she also loved it. So we put it on the record.
Yeah, it's the final track on the album. I implore everybody to listen to it. It's really good. It's a great way to end a really interesting and exciting album. Thank you, the three of you, for joining us today. We're going to bring you back shortly for our group panel.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with award-winning Sean Douglas, co-songwriter with Kristen Wiig and Josh Greenbaum on Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper. I like it how that's reversed. That tricked me for a bit.
Yeah.
Mate, I just love this running gag in the film when Will and Harper are FaceTiming Kristen Wiig for a theme song that is, I'm reading this now, tear to your eye, fun, up-tempo, jazzy with a little country, and she's taking notes, but it's got to be in 2 days. That made me laugh out loud. But then I'm wondering, okay, what happened next after that setup in the film for you guys to get together and write the song?
Yeah. I mean, so obviously it's such a sort of ridiculous list of things to try and compile into one song, which is why the bit is funny in the movie. And I mean, what happened was Josh Greenbaum, the director of the movie, put us together, me and Kristen, and we screened the movie, and it was so, wherever the cut was at that point. And you've seen the movie, obviously, so it's really beautiful and obviously deeply affecting but also really funny. And so you kind of are playing with okay, you can reference, it's like you're referencing the story of what they're sharing with her about what they actually want the song to be. And it's tempting to sort of reference all these other parts of the movie, but really ostensibly it should be from the point of view of someone who's just getting the call from these guys to do this theme song. So yeah, we just I don't know if that's answering that question, but we just kind of wrote it from there and wrote it from our sort of place of how compelled we were by the story we had just watched about these two friends, and just got off and running.
So how do you typically work with Kristen and Jeff on the song? Did you contribute all your own parts, or was it very much just a team collaborative effort?
Yeah, just a team collaborative effort. I mean, the way that, I'm usually like a pop songwriter, sometimes a little bit of country, which is not to say I've, done some things for films, but my main day-to-day is you go in a room with different combinations of people and you kind of say, okay, what do we got today? And everybody puts out their little bits. Somebody's got a title, somebody's got a chord progression, somebody's got a melody, and whichever one is kind of like making the room react. The other people kind of go and just sort of pull that thread and keep going. And we just did that. I had a little seed of an idea of kind of, I like this sort of manifest destiny idea of these two friends going west. I kind of pitched the start of that to them, and then we just kept going. And obviously, like Kristen is amazing, and knows, not surprisingly, a good collaborator, and funny, but also I think people will be surprised by how beautiful her voice is. What a great singer she is,
Yeah, she's a really good singer. And we've heard little bits and pieces on Saturday Night Live and
Yeah.
of course on the airplane in Bridesmaids, but not like this.
Yeah.
Saying something similar to Lee and Dallas earlier, because I always like to zone in on a lyric that affects me. And I love a friend is a friend is a friend till the end. I think it's just so simple and yet so encapsulates what this film is about. It's heartwarming. I'm wondering, did that come early on in the writing process?
Yeah, I think relatively early on, because that's just the sort of resounding message of the movie is obviously it's an issue that certain people find triggering. It's an issue that is controversial. But when you get down to it, and why I think the movie is so wonderful is that Will is like the best ambassador for this. Harper, she's kind of the hero, but Will gets to be the sort of, he's not a person that people view as being like a crusader for causes. He's there to be a friend, and obviously there we understand what his feelings are in support of Harper, but it's more about being there for his friend. And that to me just feels like what it's all about. It's not about like, hey, everybody shut up and listen to I mean, that's hopefully what gets across, but it's not sort of beating
Yeah.
people's heads about how they need to come around to our side of this issue. It's about two people coming together and loving each other.
That's actually so much of what this film represents, because it's not about, here, take your medicine, we're going to give you a lecture about trans rights. This is just about, this is about two human beings connecting who have known each other for a very long time, who love each other no matter what. And we all feel that way about family and friends, and that then makes it relatable. And so the song, when it's finally played at the end, and Kristen's playing it in her backyard, it really affected me. I thought it was just the perfect way to end the movie. And when a song can do that for a film, that's gold. So I just wonder then, what do you typically like about writing for a film as opposed to, when you're just writing songs as an artist or with a collaboration? What does that mean to you?
It's just really nice to serve something that is larger than just the song, and a big, like a hip hop song or a hit country song is a thrill, and it's so fun, and it's like a real sugar high, it's it's zippy and can be fleeting, and then you have this feeling, and it's not to take anything away from it, because I love it, and it's I chase it every day as well, but then you kind of have this, okay, well, where's the next thing? And this has a sense of like real, to me, like sustenance to it, where you live with what you're doing for a little longer, and you have watched these people go through a journey, and you've watched Harper go through everything that she's gone through, or at least give us a window into that. And you kind of feel like, well, I don't have anything to do with that, but if I can at least serve that to some degree, and that's satisfying in a different way than pop stuff is.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, well, thank you, Sean, for your time today. We're going to bring you back right now for the group panel.
Okay, great.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, and I am so delighted to be joined by some of the most acclaimed composers and songwriters and artists working today. I'm joined by Lee Brice and Dallas Davidson, songwriters of The Neon Highway from the film of the same name. Alex Summers and Scott Alario, composers for Nickel Boys. The Octopus Project's Toto Miranda, Yvonne Lambert, and Josh Lambert, composers for Sasquatch Sunset. And Sean Douglas, co-songwriter of Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper. Welcome, everybody. The first question for you all, and I'm probably going to go to Dallas first because he was the first one I actually interviewed in this whole panel, is about what you most value about composing for visual media as opposed to writing music or creating music for an album or a live performance. What is it about film that you most value?
That's a tough question for me to answer, being this is the first time that I've actually ever done it. But when I got to write the song, I got to read a script, write a song that was right in line with the film, and then get to see it come to life, as you say, visually. I actually watched the film, and I heard a little snippet of my song, and then in the song, the film was actually written about the song. So the song was the whole focal point of the whole film. So it had to hit on what I wrote. So seeing that happen was really cool, compared to where I typically write a song for, say, we'll use Lee as an example. And the joy I get out of that is hearing it on the radio, or the only other visual examples I can come up with is watching a music video. So this was a first for me, in writing a song specifically for something. Usually I just write whatever the hell I want to write. I write songs for myself in hopes that other artists like them. This was written specifically for visual effect, but again, the script was written to include my song as the whole meat of the movie. So it was a first, and hopefully not a last.
Yeah. Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I personally I'm such a movie like fan, always looking for like a great movie to watch. And then since I was a baby, like it's always been a thing. And so I've always had a dream about doing that. And so I still haven't, because I didn't write this song that Dallas wrote. I got to sing it and I got to be in the movie, but it's cool to me because, I get to be right here in a room with some people who get to do it all the time. And I don't think I've been able to like stretch out what I think I can do, at some point. And I would love to get into it more. And so to be able to even have this conversation is really cool. But I just, movies and songs in them in moments, there's nothing like that visual and that audio coming together with a great actor, all the things, it just really is like the mecca of like an emotional, whether it's whatever kind of emotion it is, could take you there. And so that's kind of why I do what I do in my world. And so I'd love to do it on a bigger level at some point more. And so, me and Dal are going to have a conversation after this thing is over.
Yeah, I think you definitely should. Alex, same goes for you. You've got a lot of experience, obviously, scoring and also as a recording artist and songwriter. So what do you most value about this kind of work, where you get to score for a film and actually amplify the emotion that the audience is going to be feeling?
Yeah, I love scoring so much. I find there's a kind of like unknown, unnamed third thing. So you have the music and you have the picture. And when you make something that kind of either subverts what's happening on screen or exaggerates it, it kind of creates this like thing that's greater than the parts. And it's more powerful than if you listen with your eyes closed or if you watch on mute. And I don't really know what that is. It's a bit of an alchemy. It's really cool, but we've all experienced it in a great movie, a great scene. And I love like circling that and collaborating with filmmakers. It's way more open and collaborative. It's also interesting in scoring. You can make very simple, sparse, primitive music, and it can work and be powerful and compelling. When you take away film, I personally around my house listen to a lot of simple, primitive, drony music, but most people, it's harder to get people to connect to that. You'll be like, listen to this amazing drum piece, and then people are really bored like 3 minutes in. But in a film, that's not really the case. So it's a great arena to be working in if you like atmospheric music, and I feel really lucky to be learning and trying it all the time.
And Scott, are you on the same page?
Yeah, but actually, to admit it, this was my second film score. The first one was with the same director and Alex as well. So I don't know. It's not my day job, but I loved doing it, and I love any chance I can get to work with Alex. And making music is a dream. So yeah, loved it.
So really, you can't complain. Moving on to the Octopus Project. you guys have got a lot of experience, particularly with these crazy creative brothers. But what is it about scoring for film that you most value?
I really love working with a picture and collaborating with a picture and being in conversation with a visual element. I think we have much more experience as a kind of a rock electronic band. So moving to the composer world and working with a picture has been really awesome to do.
It feels really good to work on something that's much bigger than the thing that the three of us, work on together. And I also really love that at the end of the day, when we're submitting songs, like we submit it to somebody else and they choose like, I like this, or I like this or whatever. And then between us, it's like a lot harder. It maybe takes a lot longer to
you get to hand the bag to somebody else at the end of the day to say that this is good or this doesn't work. And it's nice to be relieved of that responsibility. It's also kind of nice to get to work in a totally different context, because in the when we're doing our band thing, we can do anything we want, but we find that certain things work for the kind of band format and certain things don't really. So it's nice to have a totally different framework where we get to try different stuff. And you get to be a part of these different kind of constructed worlds. I think that's the thing that's really exciting to me, is to get to be part of a film where they're really building a different reality in one way or another through the setting, through the story, and to get to amplify that and give that another dimension is really satisfying.
Yeah, I can only imagine it would be. It's certainly satisfying for the audience. Sean, you've kind of already touched on this, but I'm curious, when you see the final product of a song that you've written in a film, particularly a film like Will and Harper, do you remember how you felt the first time you saw it on screen? How does that actually feel?
Yeah, I was much more vulnerable than it usually feels to have like a song come out that you've written for someone else. And I don't know why. It feels like maybe because they have that running thing in the movie where they're kind of building to it and what's it going to be. So maybe that was more pronounced in this. But yeah, I mean, I think I saw it at a screening for the first time when it was actually in the movie. So you feel like the communal experience kind of makes it all the more intense. Whereas otherwise, I thought that I had become a totally jaded songwriter who couldn't experience true emotion anymore. But turns out there's a little left to be wrung out of me by the film process.
But isn't it great when you feel like sometimes you feel like so dead inside and you've had a really hard week? The power of film or TV and music and how they come together, which is why I'm always doing these panels, because it means so much to me profoundly to speak to people who create music for visual media, because of how it impacts me emotionally. So just imagine how millions of other people are feeling listening to your work constantly. It brings this up for me because I'm looking at you all on my screen and I just realizing that you're all collaborating together. You're all working in teams. Sean's two teammates are not with us today, but again, you're all working collaboratively. I'd like to know, what is the most challenging part and the best part of working in a team to create something like a song or a score that is so subjective? So you're not all going to be on the same page all the time, and that must be challenging, even if you work together for years. Who'd like to talk me through that dynamic?
I mean, I don't know about talking through the whole dynamic, but I know that the biggest thing for me in any type of situation and creating a song of any sort is just got to be listening more than you're talking, and like being open to whatever, and we've been talking about a few things that aren't like music by numbers, or you got to be in a box, and like sometimes it's somebody said earlier, sometimes it's about the sound more than it is the notes, and that's so true. And that's a true thing for me, even in just making a record, like just a record that I'm going to put on the radio or put out. And so for me, that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I can speak to that as Rob, as somebody who co-writes a lot. Actually, this song, I wrote it on the foot of my bed during a snow day. I had to go borrow a guitar from my neighbor because I couldn't get out of my house when it finally hit me what I wanted to say. And but I would say from my hundreds of co-writes, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads are better than 2. Maybe 4 is too many. There's usually somebody that's sitting there not doing shit when you've got that 4th person, but I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but I'm just
Definitely you are.
So, you know, sitting there without a sounding board, but then I had one. I had the producers, I had Stratton, and I had, you know, Bill and Phil walking me through, like I said earlier to your answer, the whole movie is about the song. So I had this great direction. So I had a sounding board. I had people telling me what, you know, what the goal, they had a master plan where the film was going to land, where it was going to go. So even though I sat there on the bed by myself on this boat paddle of a guitar I borrowed from my neighbor, it was just a piece of junk, but it sufficed. And I was, able to pull from the direction of the producers and the writers of the film. They were my co-writers, really.
That's right. And
then you take it to one of your best buddies in the world, knowing he's gonna nail the vocal, nail the production, nail the music. That was very helpful too.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to Lee. The vocals on this track, chef's kiss, beautiful. I loved it.
Thank you.
Who else would like to talk me through the collaborative process? Maybe the Octopus Project. You guys obviously are a team. You work together. You're a band. Are there moments where you're just like, you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't know what you're talking about, or is it really just not like that at all?
I think we generally err towards letting something happen, even if you're not feeling it in the moment. Because I know for me, and probably for a lot of people, it's gonna feel different when you come back around to it later, and so you can kind of trust your collaborators that even if I don't get it right now, I might get it tomorrow. So just let it be, and if you have an idea that can add on to that or elevate it, then that would be you could take that approach. But we generally go towards letting things happen rather than stopping things from happening.
Yeah, I think we try to withhold judgment right off the bat, and what I've always really appreciated about the 3 of us working together is the trust that we have in one another to see an idea through, and I think we can always appreciate that we're gonna land in a place that we're all really happy with and comfortable with.
Yeah, looking back, the track record feels good to me. So in the moment, you can trust it.
Yeah, that is so true.
Healthy band dynamic. It's nice to see.
We watched that documentary a lot.
Yeah. Right. It's so true. What about you, Scott?
Alex and I fight all the time. It's really vicious. Well, I'm on the East Coast and he's in California, so it's a little bit hard, but the only thing I'd say is I wish we had more time together, because we'll usually get a couple of days and we'll make the most of it, and sleep very little and just like be making music the whole time. But I just wish we had more time to do it. And then I think he's always right. So like I kind of defer to him a lot.
No, Scott has amazing instincts, and making music alone is a little bit isolating and it's lonely. And one minute you're like really psyched and think what you're building is really clever and cool and inventive. And then you can have these like really harsh doubts and like really not believe in what you did. And I think in having a collaborator, in this instance, Scott, my best friend of 20 years, it's so fun. And Scott's right. He believes in me and I believe in him. So we encourage each other and we drink a ton of tea and get really amped up and stay up all night. And it's so fun. And I love collaborating. I'd always choose to work with a friend and collaborator than to work solo, always.
And Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think all my best results have been sort of democratic ones when everyone is kind of bouncing off of each other. And I mean, like, even with this song for the movie and most other days, yeah, you know, Dallas and Lee definitely know this. It's like your writing combo is like it's just a band for the day. You form a band and you vibe out and then break up until that combo happens again, a few months later. But that's the fun of it, because you just get to go. It's the kind of a fine line to walk where you want to stay open to the idea that it's better than yours, even if you have like a thing coming in, but not sort of sit so far back that then when if it goes sideways, you go, ah, shit, I wish I had said something before we got like so far down the line on that thing. And some days that's just where the car goes off the road and your song's so. And then the days that you happen to kind of tiptoe on that and stay where you're supposed to be, you get something great.
I've actually learned something today because as a control freak, I always wonder how hard it would be to work collaboratively on creative things. And now I've realized that's got to help with self-doubt. And of course, we all feel that as you could be the greatest of all time. And of course, you're still going to have some self-doubt. We're human beings. And that's so insightful. Final question for you all. It's my favorite question. I always ask it. And it's about the significant impact or influences over your creative career. What scores or film composers or songwriters or recording artists that you love, that you look at as as the gold standard that you would that you revere? I could be here all day telling you mine, so let's go with you first. Who would like to take us out first?
I'll go. This is Dallas raising his hand. I'm a massive Motown fan, and if I'm thinking about all the films and movies I've seen over the years, what do you hear so much of? Motown. And so I don't know. I just thought of that. I was listening to you ask the question, and that's what popped in my head is I'm so influenced by Otis Redding, even though he was actually Muscle Shoals, but the Temptations and all these great artists that came from that little tiny studio with a dirt floor that made such an impact on so many films for, I mean, generations to come. And that's the first thing that comes to mind that influenced me, that I've just realized when you said that. I've noticed their music is just, and then the Beatles. I mean, we don't have a lot of country songs in movies. That's a fact. I think that's a shame, but I get it. The Stones, how many times have you heard Fade to Black in a song? I mean, that's just an iconic song is worthy of a Scorsese film. I mean, it's just, music is so powerful and it fits these moments and it captures. So a lot of, in short, a lot of my influences, the Stones, the Motown sound, the Beatles are in so many movies.
Yeah, I love like the opposite of that too. Like we were talking about earlier, like the sparseness that you can have and have so much power. And it's like takes me to like even like Willie Nelson, like when he turned in like Redheaded Stranger. They're like, what is this? It's like him and a guitar. They're like, this is, and so, but yet it was still and still is powerful, so powerful. And then he's had songs all over movies. And I know that's not like what we're talking about sparse, but that is kind of the thing. It's like, a guy and a guitar, a vocal and a guitar, or just a piano, maybe no vocal. You know what I mean? But that type of stuff I believe in, but also like, say somebody like Willie, or Chris Christopherson, they understood telling stories like a 3-minute story, like a little moment in life, and making it feel like a whole movie. And that's a goal that I have all the time, whether I'm writing a song for whatever I'm writing a song for. But that was just something that kind of came to me. It's like early on, it's like they're like, well, this isn't a whole record. He's like, yeah, it is. It's just so it was just so sparse, and so that part of it, is always kind of fun to think about, that you can impact so hard, but with the visuals and with the emotion of the acting and the movie and the storyline and all the things, that's something I appreciate.
But it takes to that next level. When you just said that about Willie Nelson, it made me think about Bonnie Raitt and like I Can't Make You Love Me. And I just got this pit in my stomach just from thinking about the song. That's how powerful they can be. Alex, what about you?
Like everyone here, I love music so much. I love sound. I listen to music most all day, every day. Couple of favorite film composers of the moment would probably be Mika Levi and Oliver
Yeah.
Coates.
I
The
think
two
you-
of them are like,
Yeah, that's exactly who we were gonna say too.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
there's a handful of really interesting, cool people making film music, but those two definitely come to mind pretty quick. Other music, of course, like William Basinski has been making amazing music for decades, and I've just can't get enough of it. Listen to it so often. Go to every time he plays in LA, I'm right there. Also, a lot of just my good friends. You know, I've been collaborating with people that I work with. I like to get inspired by my friends. What are you listening to? Going to their shows. I'm going to see my friend Mary Lattimore this week. Good friend Juliana Barwick. You know, collaborate with her, play with her. Of course, Yonsei and the Cigaros Boys. I'm like always inspired by my community and friends of friends, and just try to stay engaged and stay curious and not get too obsessed with what I think I know, and just stay open to influences, you know?
You know, I just got to, full disclosure, I've got to say, like, I'm listening to Alex speak, and I'm like just remembering my my days in college when I went through a trip hop Icelandic pop phase, and so a lot of a lot of the music I was listening to was stuff that you probably wrote, and it's so formative, and it's so. And by the way, listening to Nickel Boys, I did get a lot of Mika Levy in that. I felt like I was kind of like Zone of Interest 2.0, and that's a damn good thing. That's a real compliment.
No, that's a real compliment. Thank you.
Scott, what do you agree with Alex, his view, or do you have a different aesthetic that you love?
Yeah, no, I would just add Ryuichi Sakamoto, the Japanese composer, because just like such a, for me, gold standard. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh yes, absolutely amazing. How about let's go to Sean next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're talking about sort of favorites across the board or favorites as it relates to movie things, but
Whatever you want.
I'm a huge Randy Newman fan. I just think he's one of the best lyricists and songwriters ever. Burt Bacharach, you know, Stevie, you know, the classics. I mean, I love Mos Def. Black on Both Sides is one of my favorite albums ever. Yeah, all across the board.
Oh, there's some really good stuff in there too. I'm having little glimpses in my mind of similar tracks, and again, it just takes you back. Music can just transport you in a second. Nothing else can do that. Octopus Project. Let's go with you first, Toto. What's your view on terms of songwriters or film composers that you review?
Well, I think Mika Levy would be our go-to as well. That's just like such a huge inspiration for the way they can do so much to elevate what you're looking at with the simplest sound and just like really create a whole other space in your mind. This came up earlier when we were talking about Popol Vuh is a big one for the Herzog soundtracks. I think that's a touchstone for both us and the Zellners, who we work with a lot.
Mm-hmm. Josh?
Yeah, I think to add to that, we've always been obsessed with this French composer, Francois de Roubaix. I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly, but 60s, mid 70s, amazing, like crazy synth sounds and just so textural and beautiful and awesome. And Ligeti, of course, is great. But more recently, I would say our good friend David Wingo is just fucking awesome and doing amazing stuff all the time. I really like his stuff.
Yeah.
And Yvonne?
I'm gonna say, well, my first musical love was Beethoven, and just the emotion that I felt on first really kind of listening to it as a 5-year-old. And then a composer I was just listening to this morning is Alberto Iglesias, and I just amazing, and some of his piano compositions that I was listening to this morning kind of reminded me again of being a 5-year-old listening to Beethoven and feeling all this emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that is so cool. And I want to give a shout out while we're here to one of my favorite composers, Abel Kozianowski. He's a Polish composer who did a single man, sorry, Nocturnal Animals. And of course, to me, some of the greatest albums of all time include things like Sufjan Stevens' Illinois. Like that still brings tears to my eyes. And as an Aussie, I think Dallas might appreciate this. The amazing Sia, everything she does just completely blows my socks off. As I said, we could be here all day, but I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to let you all go. Thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciated everything that you've given us today, and especially wanted to congratulate you all on some really beautiful work. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Nice talking to everyone.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
cheers, everyone.
Good to meet y'all.
Bye. Thank you.